Welcome back, listeners, to Heartfelt Harmony, the deep dive. Today, we're really stepping into a pivotal moment. It's more than just dissecting a story. It's about witnessing resilience, partnership, under immense pressure. Last time, in Season 1, Episode 4, Facing Challenges, things got pretty intense, right? We navigated some really turbulent waters. You remember we were left grappling with this profound cliffhanger. A critical scientific report, the very foundation of Nyla and Brody's work, was compromised. We're talking missing key hydrological flow data. Foundational calculations subtly altered. It threatened the whole project's integrity. And the big question hanging over everything was, would their resilience, the strength they'd shown overcoming past crises, bureaucratic hurdles, would it be enough this time? Especially with this new, very personal attack on their mission's credibility, and maybe even on their bond itself. Okay, let's unpack this. Because now we land squarely in Season 1, Episode 5, the turning point. And this isn't just, another episode. It feels like a direct consequence, emerging right from those intense pressures, that significant opposition they were facing. So our mission for this deep dive is to really explore how Nyla and Brody, faced with such a monumental setback, don't just falter, they adapt, they innovate, they fundamentally reevaluate their whole approach. And crucially, they make this decision that, well, it doesn't just highlight their resilience, it reaffirms it vividly. This episode, really, it's all about them returning to their roots and the profound, transformative impact it has on everything moving forward.
Yeah, what's truly fascinating when you look at the overall narrative arc is that immediate shift,
Yeah.
right from that point of deep crisis to adaptation. It really speaks to this almost instinctive strength within their partnership, this dynamic ability not just to weather the storm, but to actually evolve because of it. And it's interesting, the source material doesn't actually give us the play-by-play, the minute-by-minute details of how they technically fix that compromised data, whether it was this huge effort to recollect verifiable data or maybe some brilliant legal move to prove malicious intent. We don't get those specifics, but it absolutely implies they navigated that immediate existential threat. They found a way through, and that initial push, that demonstration of overcoming such a sophisticated and deeply personal hurdle, it's absolutely key. It's like they passed this ultimate test technically and ethically, and that victory, that hard-won success, it clearly informs their next big strategic move. They seem to realize that simply being right wasn't enough. They needed a different kind of defense, a different approach entirely.
Indeed. That makes perfect sense. So let's really set the stage to that. Let's delve into that crucible of crisis that actually forged this turning point. Because it's so crucial to remember, like you said, this wasn't just bad luck. It wasn't random.
Precisely. That context is everything. The compromised data, those altered calculations, it didn't happen in a vacuum. It was a direct result, frankly, almost predictable, given the intense pressures and significant opposition they'd been facing all through Episode 4. This wasn't a technical glitch. The source strongly suggests it was targeted. A deliberate assault on the very foundation of their credibility. Can you imagine? Years of work, this carefully built scientific model, suddenly fall of impossible values. Or a key legal argument based on figures that are easily disproven. It's designed to completely undermine trust. Trust in Nyla's science, trust in Brody's legal work. It hits the integrity of everything. And inevitably, that puts this immense, almost unbearable strain on the partnership itself. That kind of external attack, especially when it goes after the core truth of what you're doing, it can be utterly devastating. It's designed to break spirits, dismantle alliances.
And yet, and this is what makes their story so compelling, right? In response to this huge setback, this attempt to basically tear down their work and maybe their partnership, Brody do what the narrative keeps showing us they do best. They adapt and they innovate. It's not presented as some new skill they suddenly learned. It's shown as inherent, like foundational to who they are together. It's defined them since the beginning. This moment, maybe more than any other we've seen, it just shines this powerful light on their inherent resilience and determination. You see it right there. They don't crumble under this malicious attack. Instead, they pivot. They fundamentally rethink their strategy. And they come back stronger, actually, with a renewed sense of purpose. It really speaks volumes about the foundation of their collaboration, their belief in the mission.
It really does. It just underscores that their partnership wasn't built on, easy wins or public praise. It was built on something much deeper, this shared, deeply rooted commitment to their core purpose, a commitment that just transcends immediate challenges, their ability to adapt, to innovate when facing direct opposition. It's not just admirable, it's the bedrock of their strength. It's why they remain effective.
And that strength, that resilience, makes one understand where it all began. Which takes us perfectly to a return to roots, the foundational genesis of Nyla and Brody's partnership. If you've been following along from the start, you'll know this story kicks off with the intersection of worlds. So picture the scene of their first meeting. The source is clear. It wasn't some big conference or a chance coffee shop thing. It was a community seminar on local climate change adaptation, held in like a community center basement, earnest, a bit worn, Imagine the room. Folding chairs, maybe a flickering projector, the air buzzing, we talk about heat islands, local water supplies, real community concerns. And the source calls their first interaction profoundly impactful. Not just exchanging names, but during a heated Q&A. Nyla, the scientist, gives this clear, data-driven answer debunking a myth about groundwater. And Brody, the lawyer, immediately follows up. Not just agreeing, but outlining a concrete legal path for community water conservation. Actionable stuff. And what clicked almost instantly in those first chats after the session was this shared passion. This deep drive to create a better future. Tangibly, locally. It wasn't just professional interest. The source calls it a deeply held conviction. A moral compass pointing the same way. And that conviction, it just cut across their different backgrounds. Science and law. It immediately set the stage for this unique collaboration.
And it's so critical to grasp how powerful that immediate synergy was. You've got Nyla, right? Grounded in rigorous science, data, precision, understanding natural systems, ecosystems, watersheds. Then you have Brody, navigating the complex, often messy world of law, policy, advocacy. He understands the human-made structures, how to turn science into mandate. The moment they connected, it wasn't just two smart people. It was like two essential halves of a solution coming together. Their common ground wasn't just the what the goal, but the how. A mutual recognition, almost an epiphany, that their individual fields were stronger together, exponentially so. Each seemed to instantly get the limitations of their own discipline without the other. Science needs pathways to action, law needs accurate grounding.
Exactly. And they didn't just talk about it, which is key. The theory quickly became action. They didn't wait around for grants or official approval. They jumped right into a specific hands-on community project together. The source doesn't spell out the exact project, but our deep dive suggests it was likely something like a pilot for gray water recycling systems in a drought-affected neighborhood, maybe, using household water for community gardens. And this hands-on experience was absolutely crucial. This was their learning in the trenches, moving beyond talk, facing the real-world messiness of making it happen. And through that joint project, that messy, real-world application, they started to genuinely get the challenges each other faced, day to day. Nyla, the scientist, she runs into city permits, obscure property rights for the gardens, policy headaches, the slow grind of bureaucracy. She learns even the best science needs legal savvy and community support. And Brody, the lawyer, he gets a real insight into the rigor needed for water testing, validating system sustainability, the unforeseen ecological impacts of legal choices, this mutual insight, this kind of visceral empathy for the other's world. It didn't just make the project better, it fostered deeper empathy and strategic alignment. It really cemented their collaboration. It's one thing to respect another field, quite another to truly understand its struggles, its wins. This is where the intellectual partnership became truly human.
That direct experience is just foundational. You really can't build effective interdisciplinary solutions without that kind of boots on the ground understanding and the empathy that comes with it. For the tools, the methods, the constraints everyone's working under, it's where synergy stops being a buzzword and becomes a real functioning partnership. That first project wasn't just about building a gray water system. It was about building their shared language, their rhythm, and importantly, trust. An unshakable bond.
Okay, and here's where the story takes a really unexpected turn. Their Greywater project, initially small scale, right? It starts getting public attention, but not through some planned PR campaign. It was organic, unforeseen. It apparently kicked off with this short, raw video clip, almost accidental, but it captured the essence of their partnership perfectly. Imagine, unpolished, shot on a phone by a resident, shows them explaining the system at a community garden. Nyla's there, breaking down the complex science of gray water filtration, nutrient recycling, but in simple, accessible terms, using analogies people just got. And right alongside her, Brody's outlining the clever legal loopholes they use, maybe an old urban farming ordinance they repurposed, and the community strategies that made it work, bypassing usual red tape. So this video, first shared by maybe a local news blog or something, it just resonated, not just locally, but way beyond. Why? Because it showed science and law working together, practically, effectively, for a real community benefit. People could see it. And it just went viral. Apparently got tagged Water Warriors. Science meets justice unofficially. Reached millions on social media. This wasn't just buzz. It became this beacon of hope. Showed the power of interdisciplinary work at the local level, tackling big issues. It brought this flood of inquiries, support, not just from communities, but policymakers, national nonprofits.
Suddenly, their work was on a much bigger stage, way faster than they expected. Think about that whirlwind emails flooding in, social media blowing up, calls from major news outlets. It was totally transformative, solidified them as this dynamic force.
That kind of organic visibility, it's just priceless. It speaks volumes about how much their message connected. It's not just reach. It's connecting emotionally, intellectually, showing tangible impact people can grasp and believe in. When people see complex problems tackled with such clarity, ingenuity, and, visible passion, it sparks hope. It inspires action. So that early success, unexpected as it wasn't just luck. It was proof of their clear message, their relatable approach, the effectiveness of their method. And it laid crucial groundwork for the future, established them as credible, relatable, effective leaders in a space often filled with jargon or politics.
And that, listeners, that incredible foundation, that public recognition brings us right to the turning point, pivoting to grassroots community engagement. This decision may be the most strategically important one they've made yet. It stems directly from that crisis we discussed, the setback, the missing data, the opposition.
Yes, exactly. After that major hit where the integrity of their work was directly attacked, they were forced into this moment of profound strategic rethinking. It forced them to ask, where can we best use our energy, our passion, to build support that can't be undermined? How do we counter those powerful interests effectively? They seem to grasp that winning one court case, influencing one politician, it might not be enough if the foundation of public trust itself was being attacked.
And their crucial decision, a major strategic shift. Instead of focusing only on high-level advocacy, national conferences, the usual routes, right?
Yeah.
Which is just too vulnerable. They made the bold choice, engage the community directly, deeply, persistently. It wasn't abandoning the bigger goals, but recommitting to their core principles, a real return to their roots.
Yeah.
Echoing that first project where their bond really formed, it's like they realized that the true unshakable power wasn't just top-down policy change, but building this unwavering, informed, committed base from the ground up. They understood, perhaps instinctively, that an informed community is much harder to manipulate than a data set.
That pivot is incredibly shrewd, almost visionary, really, because while high-level work, lobbying, legal fights are vital, a groundswell of informed, empowered community members that provides a resilient foundation. It resists pressure far better than any single report or legal win. It's a strategy that recognizes and actively harnesses the latent power of collective action. Moving from fighting for the community to empowering the community to fight with them.
And their new approach, it's brilliant in its simplicity and apparently incredibly effective. They pivot to hosting workshops and forums to educate and empower residents. Picture these events, not dry lectures. Interactive sessions, local libraries, church basements, community centers. Is there, maybe with accessible graphics, explaining how a pollutant affects local health, breaking down complex data into relatable impacts. Brody's right there too, outlining legal rights, complaint channels, maybe even showing people how to file public information requests for corporate environmental records. The strategic purpose is crystal clear. Build this groundswell of support. Create an informed and activated community that can counter industry influence. They're basically building an army, not of traditional activists, but of knowledgeable citizens who understand their own stake.
And that raises the key question, right? What does this really mean for countering powerful interests? Interests with deep pockets and political clout. Well, when you give people accessible, accurate knowledge and the tools to use it, you give them agency, real agency. An informed community can articulate concerns precisely. They understand nuances beyond headlines. They advocate with conviction because they get the why and the how. And that directly counters industry tactics, misinformation, relying on public apathy or confusion. It turns passive residents into active, articulate participants. It makes public will a tangible, potent force.
And the impact. The source says it was incredibly impactful, far beyond maybe what even they expected. It revitalizes their mission, injecting new energy and purpose into their work. You can just feel that, can't you? Seeing people understand complex issues, connecting science to their lives, feeling empowered. That must have been this incredible boost after the strain they'd been under. It fostered genuine community involvement, moving beyond just passive support, signing a petition online, maybe to active participation. People weren't just showing up, they were learning, sharing experiences, volunteering time and resources, really getting involved.
And that engagement, in turn, generates widespread support. It demonstrates the undeniable power of collective action when guided by passionate and informed leaders like them. It built directly on that earlier success, the viral moment, the attention from leaders. But now they weren't just recognized, they were trusted deeply. seen as authentic, connected to the community. This approach just proves that while external wins are valuable, that embedded, informed, self-sustaining community support, it's far more resilient, more enduring, ultimately more powerful. It's a grassroots ecosystem.
And this profound shift, this return to roots, naturally leads us to look at how it affected their own relationship, fortifying their partnership.
Yes, crucially, and maybe most importantly for the long haul. As Nyla and Brody saw the tangible effects of this community work, their bond visibly strengthened. You can almost feel the relief, the affirmation, that immense strain from facing challenges, the data crisis. It was alleviated, palpably.
Yeah.
Seeing the positive impact directly on the people they wanted to help, that's powerful validation. It answers the why endure the opposition question loud and clear.
Absolutely. And this direct impact, it reinforced that deep friendship that started growing earlier, back in Expanding Horizons. It proved definitively that their commitment to the cause, and just as importantly to each other, could withstand even major targeted setbacks. That crisis, the compromised data, the attack on their credibility, instead of breaking them, it pushed them to double down on their strengths, their unique approach, their connection to people. And in doing that, they found not just renewed purpose, but an even stronger connection. Their profound mutual understanding, built through shared purpose, empathy. It was reaffirmed. It really is like a crucible, isn't it? The intense heat doesn't just test the metal, it tempers it, makes it stronger, more resilient.
Precisely. Adversity met with that kind of resilience and shared vision. It doesn't just test a partnership, it refines it, deepens it, gives it this almost impenetrable strength. They reaffirmed their commitment not just to the cause, but to each other. Realizing their combined strength, that science law integration, is their greatest asset against complex challenges. This deeper bond isn't just emotional, it's operational. It makes them function better together.
So this strengthened foundation, right? Solidified through community work, renewed connection. It propels them into the next phase. The source calls it building bridges, which aligns perfectly with what we've called season 2. And in this phase, they don't just keep going, they dive even deeper, exploring that intersection of environmental science and legal advocacy in new ways. It's about pushing boundaries now, innovating on a bigger scale, proving their blended approach can tackle even grander systemic challenges. They're architecting something more robust.
But, and this is important, it's not suddenly easy street. This ambitious scale-up predictably comes with difficulties. They still face initial setbacks. You can easily imagine the sheer frustration of bureaucratic red tape. Not just one permit, but endless layers of approvals, the slow grind of government processes. It's not the drama of sabotage, it's the relentless friction of institutional inertia. A different, maybe even more tiring kind of adversary.
And it's not just external hurdles. The source mentions they also contend with differing opinions within their own expanded teams. Think about that. Maybe scientists questioning legal compromises needed for policy, feeling it dilutes the science, arguing for purity, or legal minds finding the scientific precision too rigid for real-world politics, wanting more flexibility. These internal frictions, they're natural in ambitious interdisciplinary work. Challenging, yes, but often where real innovation happens, if managed well. Still stressful, though.
That's a critical point. It is precisely through these trials, the external bureaucracy, the internal team dynamics, that their partnership truly solidifies, fundamentally. Their determination to bridge that science law gap. It strengthens their bond because it has to. It forces better communication, deeper empathy for different perspectives, and creative compromises that respect both fields without losing sight of the mission. This resilience, this commitment, it leads them to innovative solutions. The source calls them breakthroughs, not just small tweaks, but new ways of thinking born from that fusion of science and legal strategy. They learn to make the whole greater than the sum of its parts.
And as proof of their growing effectiveness, these breakthroughs start getting serious attention from local leaders, not just a polite nod. Real recognition that can lead to wider adoption, actual policy changes, more resources, financial, human. It propels their mission forward with new momentum. That grassroots work, that community support they build, it makes them not just credible to leaders, but powerful. Undeniably so.
So if we tie this all together, the turning point illustrates so clearly that real progress often demands adapting strategies, pivoting, and crucially, remembering that core human element. What's really fascinating is how connecting directly with people, empowering them, it becomes this force multiplier, not just for the mission's success, but for strengthening their own bond. It's that constant reminder of why they started, who they're fighting for. That human connection fuels them through the tough stuff.
So what does this all mean for Nyla and Brody? Well, it means the resilience isn't just about survival. It's thriving through adaptation, through changing course. It means community engagement isn't just tactics. It's a revitalizing, fortifying power source. And maybe most importantly, their bond isn't just friendship. It's this dynamic, strengthened partnership, forged anew through shared purpose, direct impact, and commitment to each other. So how will this revitalized community support, empower them in future confrontations? Because you know there will be more. What new opportunities will come from empowering residents like this? And how will their strengthened bond prepare them for the next, probably even more ambitious, phase of their pursuit of a better future? These are the questions that just hang there, right?
And if we look even broader, their whole trajectory suggests a future beyond just local work, as vital as that is. Their combined expertise, that seamless integration of science and law, it could position them as a really influential voice in global climate advocacy. You can picture them advising governments, NGOs, maybe even international bodies like the UN on implementing truly sustainable policies. Their journey, starting from that community seminar, surviving adversity, it could inspire so many others to pursue similar interdisciplinary solutions. Integrating different kinds of knowledge. Maybe they even found a new international organization focused on sustainable development globally. This solidified alliance, tested by fire, affirmed by impact, it equips them to tackle those increasingly complex environmental issues that cross borders.
Okay, listener, before we wrap up, I've got a little challenge for you, our dedicated listeners, to get you thinking even deeper about Nyla and Brody's journey. It's a chance to really dive into the core of their story, this blend of science and law that started so humbly and faced so much. All right, here's the riddle. Mull it over, share your thoughts online maybe. We'll reveal the answer next time. Ideal in truths, yet they can be unseen or lost. My partner battles wrongs, no matter the cost. We face a giant who values gain, then turn to roots to break the chain. What am I, this powerful blend that champions Earth to the very end? Send us your guesses. We're genuinely curious to hear what you think.
It really does leave us with this important overarching question as we close out today. How will Nyla and Brody emerge from this crucible, this turning point, armed now with widespread community support? Will their partnership continue to withstand the immense pressures ahead? Or will their commitment to the cause and to each other be altered, maybe even transformed, by the scale of the battles yet to come?
Join us next time on Heartfelt Harmony, the deep dive, as we continue to unravel this compelling and honestly pretty inspiring narrative.